Do you love schooling bass? What is one of the most overlooked baits to fish for schooling bass? I learned this on Kentucky Lake, by the way. And my old buddy over there that some of you might remember used to have a television show, Ron Shear. That's right, Ron Shear taught me this trick about schooling bass on Kentucky Lake. I'm going to tell you right after today's Catch of the Day. Good morning, guys and girls. May 28th. May 28th. We're going to be looking at the prophet Isaiah, Isaiah 25:4. And this is Isaiah talking to God, praying to God. And he says, "You protect the poor. You protect the helpless when they are in danger." Talking to God. So if we were to just put this in another tense, God protects the poor. God protects the helpless when they're in danger. You can bet with all these years I've been on the water, I can mention many times. Here's the story I picked out. Peacock bass fishing is probably the most exciting freshwater fishing you can do. I've fished giant Guri Lake in Venezuela many times for peacocks. Guri Lake is like the second largest lake in the world. It's something like 100 miles long, 20 miles wide. I mean, it's huge. I think not counting the Great Lakes, the second largest man-made lake in the world, second or third, something like that. It rains some almost every day, but violent storms are rare, and they usually end well before dark. You can see these storms coming up over the mountains, and they're hot, they're fiery, thunder, lightning, carrying on. But it rains a little bit, and then they go away, and sometimes you see them, but they don't get where you are. One time, Chris, my daughter Sherry, and I were caught 25 miles up the lake, right at dark, in an extremely violent storm. We traveled those 25 miles in two tiny boats with no lights, no bilge pumps, and in total darkness, total blackness, lightning, pouring down rain. And let me tell you, we went to a camp that they had down there that was not a camp where anybody lived at. It was just a camp where they stopped and had shore lunch sometimes. And there was a couple little hut type deals out there that we got under and got out of the rain. And we sat there until like 3 or 4 hours after dark, and it rained and poured and everything. And we didn't want to spend the night there. The mosquitoes, we knew it'd get bad as soon as it stopped raining. And we thought, well, we just do not want to spend the night on this island. And so it slackened up a little bit, and we thought, well, that wind's going to die anytime. We think we can make it. And we took off back through that total darkness, heading that 25-mile run back. And we're in these little bitty small boats with 50 horsepower motors on them, no lights, no bilge pumps, and pitch black. And we headed back toward camp. It was probably one of the dumbest things that I've ever done in my life. I mean, it was absolutely insane to do what we tried to do. The storm was hot, the waves were the biggest I've ever seen, and we were never close to shore. Right out in the middle of a lake that's 20 miles wide, going 25 miles back toward the dam. It took more than 4 hours of impossible boating, but somehow our family made it. At the time, many times as a matter of fact, during that 4 or 5 hour ride, I thought our odds of safety were almost zero. But my God gave us his protection and made those odds 100%. 100%. I've come close to dying a lot on the water. The biggest thing I was concerned about there at that time was not dying on the water, is the fact that Chris and Sherry were with me. And it was scary, but somehow I just knew in here we were going to make it. And by golly, we did. By golly, we did. I know that you've probably been in those type situations when it just seems like that the odds were zero of you physically making it through whatever it might happen to be. I know that many of you have made it through brain tumors and cancer and heart problems and all kinds of situations because you've commented on me about it. You've told me your story. And I've known that many times your odds that you would put at 0, but God put those odds at 100%. Can I tell you that it's not what our thoughts or our odds are. It's not the doctors. It's not the physical situation around us. It's God's odds that count, and that's all, God's odds. And God's odds in that situation was 100%. It kind of helped us a little bit, I believe, if we realize that God would tell us those odds before we start back on that. But probably what God was thinking as we pulled away from that island and that shore where we could have spent the night, and for sure probably been safe. I don't know that jaguar or something might have eaten us, but we'd have probably been safe, but we didn't. And God would have he probably just shook his head and said, my, I can't believe that boy's doing that. But I did, and he put his odds in effect, 100%. Here's our tip for the day. Schooling bass. Fish a silver spoon fast through schooling bass. Now, I'm not talking about a silver spoon that you would use, over the top of lily pads or in top grass or stuff like that. They're like those Johnson silver spoons that are concave and meant to put a little skirt or a piece of pork behind them and a little piece of plastic and fish them over the top. I'm talking about a jigging spoon that you will fish down on the bottom, like a 3/4 ounce jigging spoon that you're going to fish down on the bottom and jig up in the wintertime. It's what we use January and February when the fish are in their deepest, hardest part of their winter type pattern. That's what we use to catch them in a lot of the man-made lakes around. I'm talking about using that 3/4 ounce jigging spoon up on top of the water. Now, here's one of the big advantages. One is it will cast a mile. You're throwing a 3/4 ounce bait that's like this and thin. It's like a bullet. It's like you're throwing a bullet out there. You can take that thing and throw it a long way, and that's important in fishing for schooling bass. One of the reasons people like to use big topwaters like a Zara Spook is because they can throw it a long way. They can reach the fish with it. You can throw that thing back there, throw that thing out there in those schooling fish, and don't let it sink. You got to throw it out there as soon as it hits the bottom. Just start winding it right through the top of them, just bouncing, skipping on the top of the water. And they will absolutely go crazy. It just looks like something minnow up there on top of the water trying to get away. It is one of the very best baits I've ever seen. When Ron Shear told me, I had a Johnson Silver minnow tied on, he said, Jimmy, that's not the kind of spoon you want to use. You want to use this jigging spoon. And we smoked them. So we're getting into the schooling bass season. We're getting into it now in a lot of places in the South. May, June, July, August, in the fall. From now on, it's the best time to catch those schooling bass. Make sure you have I like to use those, Cotton Cordell made one called a CC spoon. Cotton Cordell, CC spoon. That's a good one. But those jigging spoons, work them on those schooling bass, and you will be surprised. Guys and girls, go out there and have you a great one. Remember, I love you.